Hey there and welcome to andysartlab. Today we're going to do attempt number 3 at trying to get resin to stick to this glass vase. Unfortunately, my first 2 attempts were failures, and that was a combination of the type of resin I used as well as the amount of pigment that I used in the resin. It's actually the exact same vase that I've used for all 3 attempts. So before I got started on this, I gave it a quick sand like I normally do, gave it a spray with some isopropyl alcohol, and then used a paper towel to remove any dust that was remaining. If you want to go and have a look at those previous resin pours that failed, I'm going to have the cards up on screen here and again here. So go and take a look and see what worked and what didn't work for those ones. For this resin pour, I changed 2 things. The first was the type of resin. So the type of resin I used was a faster curing resin this time. So it's an art resin with a cure time of around 6 hours, and it's supposed to have had a work time about 20 minutes. And the other key difference I did with this resin pour was I waited. That's right, instead of being impatient and trying to get that resin out across this glass vase, I waited for the resin to actually start reacting and warming up. One of the things that can slow down the curing rate of resin is the amount of pigment that you put into your resin mix. So even though the working time for this resin was supposed to be around 20 minutes, what I found was actually around the 35-minute mark that it actually started to react and start to warm up. And in this case, I think it's the addition of the pigment paste that I used which elongated that working time. My thought was that if I waited for the resin to get to a stage where it was starting to cure, that when the cup was actually starting to get warm, it meant that it would be getting thicker as well. This meant that it wouldn't run off the glass vase as easily, and I'd have a better attempt at being able to get the resin to stick where it laid. Now the big question is, was third time lucky? Did it actually work this time? We're going to have to stick around to the end of the video to see the final results. But don't worry, I'm not going to let you sit through 20 minutes of me pouring resin across a glass vase. I'm going to fast forward it for you. You can thank me by hitting that subscribe button, writing subscribed in the comments, and giving this video a thumbs up. At this stage of the pour, it was just about adding those extra layers and getting a good spread of colour. I didn't want to have one colour dominate the end result, so I made sure that I evenly spread the colours across the glass vase. Because you're watching this at 20 times, it looks like that resin is flowing very, very fast, but in real time it was actually a really slow drip, and the resin itself, you could feel like it was starting to cure and really thicken up. One of the decisions you have to make when you make these glass vases is to whether to keep the drips or not. On this one I decided to get rid of the drips, and that was mainly because actually I had some paper towel that got stuck to one of the drips, and it was just easier to sand them all off than it was to try to repair that little piece. It didn't actually take that long to get those resin drips down to a consistent level. It's just a matter of using my orbital sander, and I was using about an 80 grit paper here, which is quite aggressive to sort of get down those drips. I actually made a video this week on how to prevent resin drips, so I put a card here if you want to go and check that out to see a couple of tips on how to prevent or get rid of resin drips on your artwork. Now that I'd taken care of those resin drips, it was just a matter of giving a bit of a cleanup where all that dust came from the sanding, and then to put a dome layer using some UV resin around the edge of the bottle to sort of seal that up and to make that look nice and pretty. Time to hit that UV resin with some UV light. I love this stuff. It's really great that it cures so quickly just under this UV light. And of course you can't forget about the bonus prize when doing an upside down vase pour, and that's where all the extra resin drips off the bottle into a mould that you've got. And in this case I've got this sort of placemat type mould, and I think it's turned out amazingly. And here we have it, drum roll please, the finished glass vase where the resin has stuck. So it really was, with this attempt, third time lucky. I'm really pleased with how this glass vase has turned out. Once again, thanks very much for watching. If you found value in this video, please give it a thumbs up. I'd love for you to become a subscriber. Please write subscribe down in the comments below and I'll respond to you. Until next time, keep creative and we'll catch you in the art lab.